Tom Naylor, who wrote this book on secession, has a very interesting background. He's a retired professor of economics, and he seems to think that Vermont could make it on its own. I interviewed him several months ago, and for 90 minutes, and I think he would like to see Vermont follow the pattern of Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Of course, Switzerland has 4 million people, and we have 600,000. But there are Switzerland is another small country which has been very successful as an independent country, and there are even countries that are no bigger than Vermont. For instance, Iceland has only 200,000.
I think it's 3, but yeah, it's half.
Half as many. And Luxembourg, too, is another small one.
Well, I mean, the real economic question, hypothetically, if Vermont were to say to the other states, hey, we've had enough, we want to secede, is that all right with you? You'll actually spend less money if we secede because Vermont gets, $1.05 for every dollar we spend in federal taxes, something like that. So economically, the other states would all be a little bit ahead of the game, in theory. For Vermont, we'd be ahead of the game because we would no longer be spending 15 or 20% of our cost in the bureaucracy of applying for the money back that we've paid in federal taxes to get, quote, grants back from the federal government for education, etc. There's no net gain by being part of the U.S. government for the state of Vermont, assuming, of course, that we could keep trade relationships going with the other states and with Canada, assuming, of course, that this is a peaceful movement that's done mutual consent, not a civil war kind of military option, which is absurd to even consider. So there's a bunch of that's not likely kind of assumptions, but if you just look at it on the pure economic level, Vermont would be better off.
When I interviewed Tom, he pointed out very emphatically that his idea was peaceful. We vote, and of course, if the federal government says no, then it's no, but at least it will be open for the world and everybody to see that Vermont wants.
Sure.
And there's precedent, too, as you know, in the Soviet Union, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia that seceded from the Soviet Union. And they avoided the big collapse over there, which may very well be coming here.
Well, to me, the real reason that the theory, it's really what I would refer to as decentralization. So if you look at the world today, there's numerous challenges. If you want to talk about climate change, global warming, or peak oil, or localized food and economic systems, the point is that one size fits all for education, healthcare, any of these things doesn't work. Each region has a unique set of resources and skills and challenges and opportunities, and what Washington, D.C. figures out would work for education or banking or minerals or energy. That might work for a few places, but it's not going to work for every place. Every place has its own needs and needs to figure out its own ways to approach that. And that's also part of just the crumbling empire. We don't have the economic momentum to continue this endless growth paradigm. We need to get ready for a steady state economy. We've got less energy available because of peak oil. We have to survive without these fossil fuels, and we have to look at it from not from a growth paradigm, but from a steady state sustainability paradigm.
I believe Robert and I have something in common, a professional connection in common with Tom Naylor. He taught computer science at Duke University. Just last week I downloaded the new Ubuntu 10.04 from the internet for free. And free open source software known as FOSS, F-O-S-S, has made significant advances in recent years. Large countries such as Brazil and South Africa are financing it with public funds. Do you believe that it will ultimately put Microsoft out of business and possibly cause a significant democratization of the world economy?
The price of a commodity, any commodity, a jar of milk or a copy of Windows will be high or low depending on what people are willing to pay for it. If there are alternatives, the price is going to be a lot lower. Now, I don't think it'll put Microsoft out of business, but the huge windfall that they currently get from being the only game in town, that'll go away. One of the ways that they hold on to it is just by exploiting stubbornness. For example, when I tried to buy a computer, I was told that it would be there would be a $50 charge if it didn't have Windows on it.
Right.
And all I wanted to do was put Linux on there. So I said, okay, whatever, I'm not paying $50, put Windows on there, which when I got home I promptly erased and put Linux on there. But that's a really silly example, but when you look at companies, when you look at government organizations that are locked into Microsoft or locked into any vendor, once you get vendor lock-in, that's an opportunity for the vendor to not perform, to do less and charge more. It's the same thing for anything that you're forced to have, and car insurance, health insurance. If you're forced, the price goes up.
We're really being forced to buy Microsoft operating system every time we buy a computer, because it's on the computer, and as you say, it costs more not to have it.
Right.
But really, why should it cost more not to have it? It should cost less, because Microsoft is getting a lot of money from our purchase.
Firm believer in competition.
Yeah, there's a great book called Wikinomics that gets into the idea of open source as a business theory versus, instead of buying low and selling high, the business paradigm shifts to you've got an audience, you can create value by connecting that audience to other audiences and making resources move, and you're not just moving commodities, you're enabling that movement, and that there's ways to monetize that, and there's ways to make your production systems come to you for free. The idea that a lot of companies, Procter & Gamble is one that's taken this to the business level in terms of, they have a huge amount of R&D going on where the ideas are coming from the customers. And some of the engineering and science is coming from people who just want to have a voice and get their good idea put into the market. They're not even trying to make money with it. So, the ideas of open sourcing everything is really a community model. And, when you look at that in a decentralized way, it gets back to kind of the good old day kind of illusion, if it was, but you've got a community of people or a community of users working together to improve the overall product that everyone shares.
I have 5 home computers, and all of them are multi-boot. Unlike you, I don't want to throw anything away, so I've got Windows, it's there, but I also have Ubuntu on every computer, and a couple other interesting systems are Slacks and Puppy Linux, and I have them on my flash drives. So when I go to a library, the UVM library, I can plug in my flash drive and run Puppy Linux instead of the Windows operating system that's on the.
Sure. Well, as a consultant, I don't talk about it individual customers because I respect their privacy. But I can tell you what the trends are. And data centers and web farms, they're en masse moving over to Linux and other non-Microsoft operating systems, not only because of the cost of keeping these going and licensed in the data centers, but the security risks involved with Windows. And there's security risk. They keep patching and patching and patching, and of course, they keep patching, and the hackers know what the patches are before you apply the patches. So for security reasons, companies are moving away from Windows, not on their desktops and what the secretary uses and what the boss uses to send his email, but in the data center, the Windows server operating systems. So those are there's a significant flight away from Windows because of that, regardless of what, for example, in Montpelier, the state employees are using on their desktops.
Even for the home computers, people are concerned about viruses. One of my computers I got for free because my neighbor wanted to get rid of it because she thought it had a virus on it. Having been a computer engineer, I knew how to get rid of the virus, but Linux is almost virus free, isn't it? I haven't heard of any virus, although I do have a antivirus program on my my Linux system. As far as I know, there haven't been any.
Well, it's not impossible to write a virus for Linux, but as Henry George said, human beings will seek to gratify their desires with least effort. And it's just so easy to write a virus for Windows that'll just go out there and infect lots of computers, and people have their silly emails set to automatically open each and every attachment. It's easy to propagate a virus. It's just doggone hard to propagate a virus through Linux or through Mac, because the users are generally thoughtful and careful. So there you go. It's not impossible, but it's just the nature of what you're dealing with out there.